One protester has died after being shot at a march in the Democratic Republic of Congo's eastern town of Goma. The incident happened when police were trying to disperse hundreds of anti-government protesters. Police and organizers say the man was shot at a banned march to mark the 59th anniversary of the Central African country's independence from Belgium. Police also blocked a car that's transporting former presidential candidate Martin Fayulu. Another opposition figure, former Prime Minister Adolphe Muzito, was in the car. Earlier, President Felix Tshisekedi had warned against what he termed anarchy.
About 50 police officers surrounded the vehicle in the middle of a main thoroughfare. The two men emerged from the car to talk to the police as some demonstrators tried to surround them. On Saturday, DR Congo President Felix Tshisekedi begged a decision to ban the march, pointing to violence that broke out last weekend. Last Sunday, as opposition leader Jean-Pierre Bemba flew back into the country, police fired tear gas at the rock-throwing protesters who targeted his convoy. Sunday's march was called by Bemba and Fayulu, who maintains he was robbed of victory in the December 30th presidential election. The Alamuka coalition said late Friday it will go ahead with the march to protest the Constitutional Court's invalidation of the election of about 20 opposition lawmakers. Kasongo had warned that any gatherings of more than 10 people Sunday will be dispersed. Fayulu accuses Tshisekedi, himself a long-term opposition leader, of being the puppet of his predecessor Joseph Kabila, whose party enjoys a majority in parliament.
For a deeper look into the DRC developments, we are joined in studio by Channel Africa producer and African Affairs analyst Nixon Katembo. Nixon, good evening and thank you so much for joining us on The Globe.
Good evening to you, Lulu, and good evening to the viewers at home.
A banned protest, one person loses their life. Exactly what is going on the ground in the DRC?
I think what is going on is a shift in the political dynamics since Tshisekedi took over power. There has been sort of a political realignment in how the opposition parties functions, especially a new breed of coalitions between those who want to join the government and those who want to remain in the opposition. And for the person like Bemba and Martin Fayulu, they still have to use that political currency that they had during the election to show up their support and to make sure that they don't lose their dwindling political fortunes that they gained during the electoral process. So that's what is happening. And I think the government also is trying to show that, no, you cannot do this. The electoral process has passed. We now need on a path of rebuilding the country. And I think that is what actually bringing political tussles within. But also, in the report, they mentioned the validation of 23 MPs from the oppositions. And I think that also centers around why only opposition MPs that were invalidated by the Constitutional Court. And we've had a discussion about the composition of the Constitutional Court under the previous president, Joseph Kabila, and how it functioned at the whim of the president. So it was not surprising that those opposition members were invalidated. So this is what is causing actually tensions in the political space in the DRC.
Has anything really changed in the DRC with regards to government and the leadership?
I don't think that anything have changed per se. We've just changed the political head in a sense. But if you look at the institutional functions of the state, there is no much change, because the DRC needs really deeper introspection on what are the institutions of the state that govern the country, that govern it to the benefit of the people, and also allowing a democratic process to actually come up at a grassroots level and continue to flourish and allow the citizens of the DRC to enjoy a peaceful country that they so much yearn for.
Now, reaction from the president of the DRC was to say that some people confuse democracy and anarchy. Just Talk to us about that statement.
Well, he's well within a particular parameter of speech, and this is a political speech that any president can make. And if you look at the constitution of the DRC, is designed also to allow that room for anarchical approach towards some of the protests, because what the constitution says that you only need to notify the authorities that you are going to have a protest. You don't need the clearance. Unlike in a country like such as South Africa, if you want to protest here in Johannesburg where we are, you will need a clearance from the metropolis of Johannesburg, which is not the case. In DRC, actually the constitution says that you just write to the authority that you have, because they believe that that is enshrined in the constitution. And actually it's a political sort of a constitutional loophole that have been used by opposition members to just protest anyhow. Hence the president saying that maybe is sort of people using it in an anarchical way, abusing this constitutional rights that is within the country's constitution.
But Julie, in this presidency or in this government leadership of Felix Tshisekedi, we've seen the return of opposition leader Jean-Pierre Bemba, which wasn't really expected for some time.
It's not only Jean-Pierre Bemba alone. I think Felix Tshisekedi has tried to show that despite the contestations and the questions around his ascendance to power, he was willing sort of to take a nationalistic approach in building the nations and bringing everyone together, trying to say now we are going to release political prisoners, we are going to allow those who are in exile to come home. Indeed, the likes of Moise Katumbi has returned, Jean-Pierre Bemba has returned, the likes of the former foreign minister now, another person of influence in the eastern of the DRC, Mbusa Nyamwisi, returned as well. So those are the key figures of the Lamuka coalition. But if you look at it, Lamuka is in itself slowly disintegrating because of the different political interest among its the former members who formed the broader Lamuka coalition. You have Bemba trying to hold on his political space within the country. You have Moise Katumbi also trying to have influence as well that he used to have. And then you have the return of Mbusa Nyamwisi as well. You have Martin Fayulu trying to hold also on his political fiefdom back in Kinshasa. So those are the dynamics that are playing out in the broader sense of the political trajectory that the country is going through right now.
Now, there's a lot that's happening in the DRC, for instance, in the eastern part of the DRC, where Ebola is spreading very quickly, and there's been a lot of loss of life. Does this not take away the attention and focus of the country, the government, into eastern DRC?
I think while we can talk about Ebola, and Ebola have been talked too much, but there is a much more bigger problem of insecurity in the DRC than Ebola, which is killing far more millions of people in the country than what Ebola is doing. And to me, Ebola is just a slice of the bigger problems that the country is facing. You have, for instance, the province of South Kivu, in places like Minembwe, in places like Fizi, where currently there are ethnic violence between the Banyamulenge and other ethnic grouping that find themselves in that country. Far in the north, in the Ituri province, you have places like Jugu, which are facing another ethnic violence. But you need to understand the genesis of this violence and the recurring insurgency. It's all have the genesis in the 1997 war of Kabila coming to power, Kabila the senior, and the subsequent rebellion that emerged after that, and the influence of foreign powers in that region is far immense that some of these foreign powers, when they left, they created proxy militias in the east of the country, and those proxy militias have been a source of revenue for some countries in terms of mineral exploitations illegally, which the country cannot actually trace.
What are these countries? Just name a few of these countries.
For instance, Rwanda is one of the countries presently ever present in that region. Uganda also. I may state, for example, when Uganda was in Ituri, after, you must remember, after Rwanda fought with Uganda in Kisangani in 1998, Uganda retreated to Bunia, which is the capital province of the Ituri, province. Rwanda also retreated to Goma and formed the RCD. And you see that different warlords that emerged in that era are the very political players that we're having now. Bemba is a benefactor of the Uganda's support, including other rebels like the Thomas Lubanga, who is at the ICC. You have the likes of the one who is now at the ICC. They call them the Terminator. I forget the name, unfortunately. But his case is coming up soon. The ICC is going to pronounce on it. And you have the subsequent rebellion, the RCD, then the CNDP of Laurent Nkunda, then the M23. But remember, during those rebellions, most of the support that were coming either from Uganda or either from Rwanda. And when those military comes up, there is this process of negotiations, and then they call for a brassage, military brassage. In other words, incorporating the former rebels into the national army. And eventually you have a DRC army, even though they might not say it openly, but a DRC army which have foreign army officers which still have allegiance to the countries of their origin. And that is the question that the DRC is facing. The case of Jugu, for instance, in just recent, you recall that General Patrick Nyamvumba, who is the chief of defense in Rwanda, went to Kinshasa and had a discussion with the Congolese president and the army officials there. At the same time, the Inspector General of Defense in the Rwandan army, General Jack Niza, was in Bunia and had meetings with militias and other groups, and eventually after he left, the war broke out. Now, this is playing out also into the regional politics. Currently, we are aware that Rwanda and Uganda are at loggerhead in terms of diplomacy and so on, both of which have been trading accusations that each one is supporting militias against each other, and both which seems to be saying and suggesting that they have their military bases or these militias are having military bases in eastern of the DRC. So it makes it a complex issue. One cannot just talk about it in a brief
short space of time.
In a short space of time. But the point I'm trying to make is that DRC have a much bigger problem that is caused by internal dynamics, but also external dynamics. And just recently, the Rwandan army deployed in the DRC. Over than 2,000 special forces, which went to South Kivu, quote unquote, to fight Kayumba Nyamwasa's rebels, which are based in the Kivu. That is what the Rwandan government is claiming. But
what's the true story?
But the true story is that, well, they are going there also to show up to guard their own interests, because Rwanda's economy quite to be frankly, cannot exist without the mineral resources that they are getting across their neighbors.
Now,
so these are issues that are not often spoken about.
But
in the
why are
public
these
eye.
issues not often spoken about, and what is the international community doing about them? Because they should be aware of what is going on the ground in the DRC.
Well, they do not forget. They do not forget that there are things that are going on the ground in DRC. If you have Rwanda producing coltan where it doesn't have, coltan mines that are known to be being exploited in Rwanda, then you have to question yourself, why is this coltan coming from? It's just coming across the DRC. And do multinationals which buy this coltan are not aware that indeed there is...
Are they not aware?
They are aware, of course.
But what is the international community
you see,
doing about it?
What happens that if you talk about the international community, an issue of Rwanda and the DRC and so on, post the genocide, the international community had that guilty cautiousness towards Rwanda. So whatever is happening around Rwanda, they turn a blind eyes. But also the issues of powerful lobbies, which the Rwandan government have paid in the United States, in Belgium, in France, and so on, to actually sort of sanitize the image of the country and just have a total blind eyes on what the Rwandan government is doing across the region. And hence you have those diplomatic tensions between Uganda and Rwanda, and recently in Burundi. Now, Rwanda, having seen that its former allies such as Burundi and Uganda are turning against it, that's why they had a diplomatic rapprochement with the current President Tshisekedi, and voila. Is it by coincidence? No. It's because there are political interests that need to be safeguarded in terms of regional politics the way it is right now.
Now, President Tshisekedi, do you think that with regards to what's happening and, with regards to the economic development of the country and the minerals that the country has, does he have the power to do something about what's happening with regards to the minerals being exported from other countries but coming from the DRC?
I think one of the things that the president needs to do and to use his powers first to look at how he secure the borders, how he return actually peace to the entire surface of the Congolese territory. And it's only then that he can manage to find out who is coming in and who is coming out, and what is coming in and what is going out. Unless that is done, and that can only be done after strengthening the institution of the state, building a strong military on part of the DRC, which is not actually have these elements that I have talked about, and building other institutions such as your courts and the
judiciary system and everything.
A judiciary.
Nixon, unfortunately, we have run out of time. I have to cut you off there. As you said, it is not a topic for one interview for a very short time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That is Channel Africa producer and African Affairs analyst Nixon Katembo joining us in studio.